This episode of the Pain Game Podcast is sponsored by True Classic. As you can see, the best fitting t-shirts a man can buy. Getting a t-shirt these days that is flattering and fits you is really tough. Trust me, I know. They're either too big on the sleeves, too small on the sleeves, too big round the waist, too small around the waist. It just doesn't fit you like a real man should be fitted. And that's where True Classic can help. True Classic make the best fitting tees that are silky soft for you and me and all us men who've been struggling with this real issue for a long time. 2 million men trust True Classic to get them a decent fit at an affordable price. And I've got you covered with 25% off when you use my code TRUE at trueclassic.com for a limited time. So you better use it now. I'm wearing True Classic now. I'm also wearing True Classic in this podcast. You'll see the variety. It's great. Go and check them out. Links in the description below. But for now, enjoy the podcast.
At one time, I was homeless. Instead of going home every night, there was no home to go to.
Life at home was very difficult. I grew up being abused.
I lost my belt. I lost respect. I embarrassed my family.
My vision was pretty much non-existent. I was able to just about scrape by the medicals.
When I come out, I have supreme confidence, but I'm scared to death. I'm afraid of everything.
I didn't care about living, I just wanted to die. I got up and I felt the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. I knew I was going to make a comeback.
Fighting, this was designed for me. This is what makes us who we are.
I'm the best!
Who the fuck is that?
I'm so far ahead of this game. My dream, my vision for myself is to be the greatest martial artist to ever live.
I have always been a fighter. There's nothing I do better in this life than fighting.
There ain't never been a man that could better me. I was born to do this.
Nobody can get close. I'm the best fighter in the world. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been.
Welcome back to the Pain Game Podcast. It's me and the big lad himself. It's Wade. Look at the gun show,
baby?
man. The gun show.
What's up?
Training again.
Oh, yes.
We got to make this regular because people just fucking loved it last time.
I know.
A lot of people saying you got to keep doing this. Big news. Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury may actually fucking happen after all of this shit that we've been going through. Tyson Fury has offered AJ a 60-40 split and Anthony Joshua has accepted.
Yes.
Mate, what the fuck are you thinking about that?
This fight has been one that we've wanted for years now. We had it pigeonholed, and then it got separated. Both guys went their separate ways. We lost our collective minds, like, why didn't you make this fight? And then, of course, Andy Ruiz said, yeah, you should have made the fight, because then he knocked out AJ. Everything went to shit. But now it's finally back, 60-40. I did see today that they're having issues on the dates, and I don't know if that's a big deal or if that's going to hold things up. I know Tyson wants to be on December 3rd. AJ wants to go on December 17th. Hopefully that's not a big thing that somehow throws us off again.
So let's dissect this piece by piece together, because the first of all, Fury was on the radio beforehand saying, oh, I didn't give them 80-20 like he would have done that to me. And Eddie Hearn was like, no, like, we literally offered Tyson Fury 60-40 when we were champion and he didn't have the belt and he rejected us because he wanted 50-50.
Yeah.
And we are now accepting the fight that he wouldn't accept. So it's so classic Tyson Fury to come out with shit
Tyson,
like this.
It's Tyson to a T.
Mate, it's weird how this guy has cultivated the personality where he can lie to the public just on a daily basis, change his mind on an hourly basis, and nobody even gets annoyed. They're like, that's just Tyson. It's just Tyson being Tyson.
What I'm going to say about Tyson is he, in the ring, he shows up, does his thing, but outside of it, it's a fucking hand grenade. You have no idea what the guy's thinking at any given moment. Like, I have no idea if this is even real. I found it frustrating personally, as when he first came out of his mental slump and became this sort of reformed guy, I was like, wow, like the sincerity, the humble attitude, and that's I'm sure that's still there, but it's been a long time since I've seen that version of him. It's the clown, the jester, the unpredictable, wild motherfucker. And we had Tony Bellew on the radio this morning basically saying, look, why is Anthony Joshua being called out by the champion
It's because he's the biggest draw in boxing, and therefore he deserves 50-50. He made the argument that he's the Conor McGregor of boxing. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, you know what? I disagree, because Conor McGregor made his name being dynamic in the cage, but also dynamic as a personality. What we became fans of with AJ, all right, stay hungry, stay humble, all of that was great. But realistically, we love knockouts. Yep. And it's been a long time since AJ actually has looked like a devastating fighter. Now that, to be fair, is because of the level he's at. But if we look at it, I'm just going to quickly bring up his record, bro, because it put it into perspective for me, like how lackluster AJ has been. And this isn't me like saying, oh, he's not good anyway, because obviously I rate him very highly. But I mean, you've got the 2 losses to Usyk, which didn't gain him any fans. And worldwide, I think most people were saying you should have pulled the trigger, you should have gone for it more in both fights. Kubrat Pulev, who dragged him into the 9th round and really should not have been in there with him.
It
wasn't a great performance.
Right.
The Andy Ruiz rematch, which we all were like, okay, you jabbed his head off and got out of there, but you didn't pile the pressure on the way Usyk did to him.
Right.
And then the Ruiz loss, I mean, was a shocker, and I don't know if he's ever fully recovered from it. But we're now down to Povetkin in 2018. Joseph Parker, which was a boring fight. Like the level that AJ was on when he beat Klitschko, when he was box office AJ, is 2017. That was, sorry. So I have to disagree with Tony respectfully, in case I see him, because he ain't that guy anymore. I think 60-40 is actually a very fair split at this point. Yeah. And I actually think now with Fury's marketing in America and the wrestling, and he's become a bigger global star, whereas AJ, when he went to America, it was embarrassing. And when he went back to Saudi Arabia, it wasn't exactly electrifying. So, the UK love him, but you're in America. You know better than me, mate. How do you see it?
Yeah. No, I saw some people on Twitter being like, it should be 50-50 because AJ is a massive draw. And I was like, yeah, he was. And even, I've heard that Usyk and AJ too did 700K, but Tyson, like you said, has become a worldwide global superstar in multiple assets to his name, right? You said the wrestling. He's also, in America, we love him. We almost adopt him as one of our own. He sings American Pie after every freaking fight, you know? So, not very well, but he sings. But, no, I think that 60-40 is fair. I don't see any other way that you do that because, you're coming off 2 losses, and I know that's not necessarily how you do a revenue split. It's obviously marketability, but AJ has become that guy that we almost expect to not show up in the best form, and that's not a slight to him. It's more so his opponents, but you're going in against the best in the world, and Tyson is the best in the world, or at least one of them. We're talking about the heavyweights now with Usyk, but you go into that fight and you're automatically thinking, okay, this should be Tyson's fight to win. What is the draw for Anthony here? Yes, he can knock Tyson out, but he hasn't done that in a while.
He's not got the reputation that he once had as that one punch,
that devastator,
death touch.
Right?
Yeah. Wilder's very mumuch took that from him.
Snatched
and even though Wilder lost to Fury, his stock has gone up way beyond AJ.
Each fight too.
Yeah, because Wilder was willing to die in there, and therefore everyone was like, "Fuck me, that was a war." AJ has never given us that level of commitment.
That third fight between Wilder and Fury, because you didn't have the caveats of, Fury's coming off a 3-year bender. Like he shouldn't be taking this fight. He should be taking more warm-ups. This was a fully prepared Kronk-style Tyson Fury. Yeah, he was a bit bigger, but still, he's adopted that. And Wilder, who everyone wrote off as being, okay, that second fight messed him up mentally. He's not going to be the same. Fuck you. He came in and dropped Tyson twice, son. And that's the thing. It's like that Deontay Wilder got better in those little 3, whatever it was, 2-3 fights. Anthony Joshua hasn't shown that ability mentally to be able to come back after a performance that wasn't his greatest and just shock everyone, put on that next level of performance, throw away all the mental skeletons and get back in and say, fuck it, man, I'm just going to go. Whatever happens, it doesn't seem like he's fully let go of some of those losses.
Absolutely. I've not really seen a fighter change so much. The way we're looking, in a bad way, you know, like the way he's come back and now clearly is a bit gun shy. And when you're a power puncher and you become gun shy, it ain't a good look. And it's a shame because we can see his boxing technique has improved. And I look at him against Usyk and I think no way could Deontay Wilder do that for 12 rounds with Usyk.
Right.
But the problem is Deontay Wilder still have a better chance than you would because he would actually have the balls to pull the trigger and leave it all in there inside 6 rounds. So let's talk about the reasoning behind Fury going after Anthony Joshua at this point in his career when he's previously rejected fights with Anthony Joshua, which we have sort of proof of now. Why now, do you think? Because a lot of people think it's slightly cynical of him to pick AJ after 2 defeats, a bit of a mental breakdown there. Do you think that... Remember, I see a little bit of Floyd in Tyson personally, where Floyd didn't want the Pacquiao fight, and then Cotto sleeps Pacquiao, and all of a sudden Floyd's like, "I tell you what, we'll make that fight." Do you think there's a hint of that, or do you think he's just like, "Look, I just want to fight"?
Well, I think there's a little bit of both, right? Because Tyson was retired for all of like an hour, right? And he's done this before. I honestly think Tyson doesn't know what to do outside of boxing. I don't think I know he has other things, but I just don't know if he thinks he is Tyson Fury without that ring. I don't know if he thinks he's the Gypsy King without that squared circle. I don't know if he knows himself outside of it, right? And his dad said the same, you know, as much as we take the piss out of John Fury, he's like, this guy can't, like, retirement's not going to suit him. He needs to be in a boxing ring, whether he's coaching, whether he's doing it, he has to do it.
I think he knew the whole time. I think this was a Jay-Z move where he's like, I'm retired. And then, you know, when Jay-Z comes back with his album, everyone's in. Like, I think that was just his way of making noise.
It could have been. No, I think so. And then, you know, when you're talking about why he picked Joshua, it seems like Usyk's going to be out for a bit. Said he's got an injury, something he's got to heal up. He wouldn't be ready by December. Tyson wants to fight in December. And there are some names, you know, I even heard the WBC is looking at making Andy Ruiz and Deontay Wilder, should he win, a mandatory possible challenge again.
Dude, that'll be such a fun fight.
Possibly. I would love it though. Yeah. But I think it is. I think it's a bit of both of what you're saying. I think he saw that, you know, AJ is just maybe not the same as he was in 2017 when he was on top of the world. And that Tyson has, you know, again, evolved his style to really be 2 or 3 different fighters at a time. You know, we talked about Floyd Mayweather adopting 2 or 3 different styles during his career and sometimes using them all at once. Yeah. The only way you see, in my opinion, Anthony Joshua beating Tyson is if he does knock him dead. And Tyson is hittable in certain instances, but he's slick defensively. He can go to that. The Otto Wallin fight showed it. I mean, many fights before that showed it. Klitschko showed it. But
you know
then
what, bro?
He's got this Kronk style where he just walks you down, puts that jab in your fucking face and says, eat it, you know? So
I actually think, you know, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be betting on AJ to win this fight at all. But I think AJ, with his new... This all depends on the mentality of AJ. But regardless, AJ's skill set is more suited to a fight with Fury than it is with Usyk. I think because Usyk never stands still, even if we look in that mega round he had, where when we looked at it in slow-mo, it realized that 5 out of every 6 punches AJ threw, he was missing. Fury does stand still, and that's how Wilder was able to drop him multiple times in the fight. And I think that there's a chance that AJ could drop Fury at some point in that fight. Don't get me wrong. I think he probably gets up and kicks the shit out of him. But when I hear people who, I mean, Fury is so loved in this country, people just repeat what Fury says verbatim, and what they don't realize is, like, Fury is a salesman. Like, real boxing heads, we know what he's doing, but some people just repeat it, and it's like, oh, I'll beat that little middleweight up. It's like, well, actually, Usyk is a fucking nightmare style, in my opinion, for any fight out there. No one's relishing fighting Usyk. I think this might be part of the reason why I was like, give me Joshua as a warm-up for this little bastard, actually. I do think that if AJ gets his tactics right, shows his improved footwork, and can commit with that level of hand speed and size we've seen, he poses a lot of the same problems Wilder did, with better technique. Not quite as hard-hitting, obviously, but...
AJ's fast though.
Yeah,
I would think his hands are faster than
he's
than
way
Deontay
fitter
Wilder's
as well.
are.
By the way, like AJ's fitness in the Usyk fights really impressed me. Even though he never never went for it, the way he managed to stay with him for like 10 rounds, I was like, okay, this is really for a guy as big
Those
as you.
first 6 rounds,
fucking Wilder was done in 3 rounds, man. He was gassed in 3 rounds. He just was going off of pure will.
No, those first 6 rounds in the second fight, let's give AJ his flowers here. He did what the game plan was for him and stay in front of Usyk, right? To try to walk him into certain places and get shots off. The problem was he just wasn't able to get those shots to where he wanted to throw them consistently. But he was there, right? He was in front of him. And this is the thing, too. Like, we're talking about the matchup now with AJ and Tyson. You can't go and try to bully AJ. Like, you can't Kronk style, in my opinion. I don't think you can just walk. I know Tyson's 290, but you can't just walk AJ down and bully him, in my opinion.
Yeah, you could do that to Wilder because his inside fighting was so poor. But as you've seen with Klitschko, and this was years ago, don't get me wrong, but Fury showed him a lot of respect, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see the slick Fury until the later rounds.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like, the clinch game from AJ isn't Deontay's. He still has one of the best uppercuts, left hooks in the game, So you get close with him and you want to start exchanging in the pocket. It seems like Fury can take a bunch of body shots with that gut, but he's coming upstairs with that uppercut and he's hitting the hook behind it, and all of a sudden you're on Wobblesville, So I think that, I think he is going to have to adopt a more slick style, not just necessarily the Otto Wallin fight where he's just kind of laying on the ropes and, shifting way back and forth, but I think he's going to have to, again, patient, aggressive pressure with a counter fighter mentality. Almost, I always talked about Conor McGregor being an offensive counter fighter. I can see the same thing here with
bait them into making the mistakes and then punishing them just on the edge of range, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think Tyson does something like that, but again, like you said, a style that AJ has here is conducive because he is technically tight. He's not wild. He's not Deontay Wilder, and he's not wild, right? So if he throws things with a technical basis behind it and doesn't overextend on shots and is around in the later rounds to carry that power, Tyson is available sometimes, and he can get hit.
My only thing with AJ coming into this fight in terms of obviously the technical difference between the two is he has to become more unpredictable. I feel like that's why Usyk cruised past him both times. Is Usyk just seeing the punches coming and he was on the edge of him or bouncing off the gloves, and I feel Fury's vision is going to be similar, so he has to, I think he may end up getting a new coach because he's been lied to by his last 2 fucking coaches, broad daylight, mate. Both of them saying you're winning every round, just fucking lying to him. He needs a coach who's going to be straight with him and try and make him less predictable.
If I was Anthony Joshua, I would come and train in America. I would come and get away from everything that's going on over there. Maybe not with Robert Garcia. I don't know if he wants to stay there and go with Robert. Cool, but somewhere just get away from everything that is comfortable and that you've done before. And come out here and get some good work with a real gym. Not to say he's not in one, but with a real gym here in the U.S.
But, yeah, I'm sick of when you hear, he's in Sheffield and all of that. I'm just like, mate, it's just not leveling him up enough, man. He's for the athletic specimen AJ is. He has not fulfilled his potential, in my opinion. And I think he needs a fucking sports psychologist desperately as well, by the way.
Yeah, no,
Jesus.
I think
that might be the most important thing.
Yeah. No, if he doesn't already have one, I'm shocked that he doesn't. But it just seems like a spider web, He's just trying to untangle everything. And you kind of saw it in that post-fight, everything come out at once. And, he definitely needs someone to be able to just write all those thoughts, just to be able to direct them. Because he has good intentions, and I think in those little moments, like even when he talked to Usyk, he was like, "Why did you beat me?" He was asking Usyk why he beat him, and he was like, it wasn't because Usyk was trying to say you're a good boxer, man. Like
Usyk was like, "You're very strong," and he's like,
he's like, "You're
strong
powerful."
doesn't mean anything.
He doesn't mean anything. Why did you beat? But he has good intentions. His mind is in the right place. He wants to become the best boxer, not just the most powerful guy, but his way of going about it, and when it doesn't necessarily work out for him, it's hard for him to handle.
I've got to give credit to AJ really, because you know, after everyone thought he was the money man and all of this, and you can only imagine how sick Eddie Hearn is to have to take 40% of this fight when he has held all the marbles for the longest fucking time with AJ. Has always been the A side. The fact that he's going in there, he's like, my God. And if Fury trashes AJ in style, you ain't going out there and that DAZN deal all of a sudden, whoa. That is looking rough. Bad value, you know? And but I got to give credit. AJ just went, yeah, fuck it, take it, you know, immediately. And showed he really is about that life. And most fighters, and I've seen a lot of boxing experts coming out, pro boxers, saying he needs some confidence building fights. He needs a trash can, he needs a Dillian White, and then he needs a big fight. So he's literally going out of the frying pan and into the fire from Usyk to Fury, and that at this point in history, that's the two hardest fights in the heavyweight division.
No, you can't like say what you want about, you know, AJ's mindset maybe being off with some of these fights or him not pulling the trigger in the ring, but him taking these fights, even the Usyk rematch right away, like you're seeing a guy that maybe isn't necessarily where he needs to be technically or skill or mindset wise yet, but he still has that, right? Still believes that he can go out and compete with the best. So my one hope is that what we didn't get from AJ in the Usyk fight was the anger, the rage. Yeah, bring it out.
And Tyson Fury will bring that out of you. I really hope he does, because we need to see AJ like angry as fuck and wanting to take this guy's head off in order for him to even have a chance. If you come in there tame, it's not even worth it.
Nah, Tyson's gonna pop his jab in your face while Sugar here is screaming, "Jab the motherfucker!" in the corner, and it's not gonna go well.
Jab the motherfucker!
This fight, he's
love it,
all over him. But this fight's huge, man. I mean, I know that's an obvious statement, but wherever they do it, hopefully, obviously, it's in the UK. It is huge, and this is gonna be one of those fights that should AJ actually get it done, it rectifies everything. Like all of the missteps, all of the losses gone like that. Because you beat basically what most people consider this generation's greatest heavyweight.
Mate, if AJ just fucking flash knocked Fury out, Eddie Hearn will take off and probably exit the stadium via like a fucking blimp or something. Like, it's going to be wild. And the one thing that we haven't talked about is in Fury trying to rush this fight through. I do think that I don't know if you know what Floyd always did, but
Floyd never had camps for more than 5 weeks.
Yeah, well, not that everyone else knew about. So Floyd is in camp 4 weeks. He rings and then he rings you up. Conor McGregor, you got 6 weeks, bitch. Be ready. Boom. And meanwhile, he is in full swing. Conor's scrambling around trying to get to Vegas.
That's all Floyd does. He just trains.
And this is, I think, partly is like, say in the state AJ was in, he's like, quicker I get him in the ring, the better. And obviously AJ, I think it's only fair to give AJ till December, considering how long this last camp was.
Tyson was saying November 29th or December 3rd, and then AJ was like December 15th, and then Tyson's like, take it or leave it. Those are the dates. So I think you're pretty spot on with that assessment.
He's a smart guy, and I don't think people sort of realize. And he disguises it well by being this big, baldy clown who says this, says that, says the other. This is all him putting out confusion so that no one realizes what a fucking master he is at this game and how he has studied everyone. I've seen him in press conferences back in the day where Prince Nassim Hamed was in, and he was like, mate, I'm the heavyweight version of you. I studied you. Like, this is real smart from him. And it's weird, but now AJ is the underdog. I feel for him a bit.
Like I said, he goes out and gets this done, man.
Or even
on top of the world,
or even puts out like Otto Wallen
like
did.
A Deontay Wilder performance.
You mentioned earlier AJ's head is like a spider's web. Well, you know where I'm going with this one. Because Anderson the Spider Silva is fighting Jake fucking Paul. This shit is wild. I can't believe it. This is like mental to me.
I know. People, it's not even receiving the amount of like shock and awe value that it's worth. You're talking about the greatest fighter possibly ever, and Jake Paul. It's not like I have no other. I don't know how else to describe it. This is fucking nuts.
What is mad, right, is how people's hate for Jake Paul will always cloud their judgment, and it's been happening. I made 14 grand betting on him to knock the fuck out of Ben Askren, for Christ's sake. It's been happening. But now,
I was on the front lines on Twitter yesterday. It's been crazy.
The best bit, my favorite bit of this whole shit is where Jake sits there and goes, "Don't let me promote a fight. Let Dana White do it." And you've got Dana White saying how great Anderson Silva is and how Jake Paul would never fight him. Yeah. And it is a bit. I mean, look, I get Anderson Silva, 47 years old, and he is not what he once was. And if Anderson Silva was that guy now, this wouldn't even be worth having, because no offense to Jake, the guy was a ninja. Right, he was he was the modern day Bruce Lee.
You couldn't
right,
touch him. You could not touch him.
There's a debate on whether or not he's the greatest ever in MMA. People talk about Khabib, John Jones, George St. Pierre. What there isn't a debate on is who was the most spectacular fighter we've ever witnessed. The one who made all of our jaws drop, the most electrifying man in MMA ever. For me, it was Anderson Silva. I'll never forget watching him humiliate Forrest Griffin in the way he did. And the skills aren't quite what they were, but he is still smashing people up in boxing, still got that power, and the power is the last thing to go. Do you think people are still not giving Jake enough credit, or is it just me?
Here's the thing. I don't even think the skills are not what they were. His speed is not what it was.
That's
right?
what I mean,
Maybe his chin is, everybody's like, oh, he's 50. And that's a fun little narrative to run with. His chin might not be what it always was, but Anderson's still Anderson. He still possesses all those things. People are not giving Jake the credit that he deserves at all for this. Because not only is and I said this in my video, if you wanted Jake to fight Tommy Fury or any of these lower level boxers at the moment, Anderson beats most of those guys. Mm-hmm. So what are we talking about? Are we just saying fight a boxer for the sake of saying fight a boxer? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
We all realized after the last DAZN event what
I'm saying, like, we can say fight a boxer.
Difference, man. It's Anderson fucking Silva. We're talking about a guy who, in his prime, was gonna fight Roy Jones Jr. at one point. Like, he ain't a bum.
Yeah, this is not only is he not a bum, but Anderson brings things that Jake has never seen. Jake has never had a reach disadvantage. Anderson's going to bring him that. Jake's never been at a skill disadvantage, honestly. Anderson's going to bring him that. And so there's things that Jake has never faced. He's never had the level of
confidence where someone's going to clown him and fuck with him. If you can't get on the inside and hurt this guy, he will humiliate you and take pleasure in showing the YouTube kid who the fucking daddy is. You know what I mean? So it's going to test Jake in so many fucking ways, this.
Anderson is known for playing around, and this is where I get a little worried, right? If we're going to talk about like the fight itself, yes, this is massive for Jake. This is a huge W, win or lose, because this is one of those things too, and we'll talk about this really quick. This is an idols versus rival, or become your rivals type thing for Jake.
You've seen that picture of them as kids.
Yes, that's so cool to me. Jake is normally the guy that'll piss you off to no end, and he will make you have this vitriolic reaction to say, I want to fight that guy. I want to shut him up. But for this one, I don't need that, because I already know how much Jake adores this guy, and it is just the fact that he's fighting Anderson Silva that sells it for me. And that is his biggest hero. Like, this is awesome. But this, and we'll talk about the fight, this is what scares me, because Jake in this fight is a massive disadvantage, but he's dangerous. And it's because Anderson loves to play. And I don't like that Anderson, I don't know, he has to take Jake seriously. If he doesn't, and he starts coming in hands down, starts bobbing, throwing out, and Jake lands a right hand, the entire MMA world dies. Like, it does. It's over if that happens.
Mate, if those motherfuckers hated Jake Paul before, oh my God, he's gonna need extra security if he knocks out the GOAT.
I'm saying, but and that's what I think though. Like, Jake has to knock Anderson out.
Just to be clear, for those who are calling Anderson washed up, finished, done, all of that.
Yeah.
3 years ago, Anderson went the distance with the middleweight champion of the world in the UFC, Izzy Adesanya. This was only 3 years ago. Israel Adesanya could not finish Anderson Silva 3 years ago. And let's be real, it was a striking battle. There was no fucking grappling going on at all. And there's a lot of kicks in there, but the point I'm making still stands. Like, the guy went the distance with the champ of the UFC now. So
not only that, though, we're talking about him beating Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in a boxing match after that. And again, we can throw the caveats all day and say, Chavez Jr. wasn't what he was when he was younger. His work ethic wasn't the same, yada, yada. But we're still talking about a guy that was a WBC champ. Mm-hmm. In Anderson's second ever boxing match. Ever.
And when you look at the last fighters that Anderson fought in MMA even, Bisping, Cormier, Brunson, Adesanya, Cannonier, and Uriah Hall, all killers. Absolute murderers raw. He's never had an easy fight in his fucking life outside of Tito Ortiz, who he sent to Snoozeville in about 2 seconds.
It looked like Tito was, I don't know what was going on. I mean, it's Tito. He has never been a great striker, but it looked like he was on slow motion, loop mode with those hooks. He was just...
Man, it's tragic. Tito one of the reasons the UFC is where it is today, and yet he's still having to get in the ring boxing gloves with Anderson Silva. But I think one of the main things that gets me is when the Tyron Woodley fight happened. I was saying to people 3 years ago, Jake Paul did not know what boxing was. He's now in the ring with a guy. What is it now? 4 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's in there with Anderson Silva. It's an older Anderson Silva, whatever we want to say. But it's amazing how people just adjust to the now and go, and I'm like, it's always just such a hater. You are such a fucking hater. It's unbelievable.
It's always going to happen when Jake fights. It doesn't matter. When it was we could even that we have the test cases. When it was Tommy, it was, Tommy's a little smaller, or Tommy's not a real boxer, or he's just a celebrity guy, and the people that were giving him credit, fair play, but then it was Hassem Rahman Jr. This was your sparring partner. He's not going to try to knock you out. It's already fixed. Why are you fighting a heavyweight? He can never make the weight. You're weight bullying him. There's always going to be something for Jake, right? It doesn't matter who the opponent's going to be. I've accepted at this point, people just don't care. They want to shit on what he does. And listen, I'm not the biggest Jake Paul fan in the world, but this deserves all the credit. The age is the only thing you're going to bring me, and he's not a boxer. This is the greatest striker that's ever lived. He won 16 in a row in the UFC. No one can do that. I don't know what else you need. This is the fight. And it's going to be the only fight that shows Jake's inefficiencies from the jump that he could have taken right now. Because Tommy Fury, Jake, that would have been a pretty even fight in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Anderson is going to show what Jake lacks from the jump. If there is those things.
Anderson, just to be clear, look, we don't know the strides that Jake's been making in training, but based on his last fight with Woodley, his judgment of distance, his knowing when to go, when not to go, so many little, I could list a whole list of things that I just thought he needed to work on. So for him to go from that to Anderson Silva now, it could be a big fucking mistake. Big time. Yeah. And for people who are like, it's old Anderson Silva, I'm like, you want to get in the fucking ring with Anderson Silva. Do you know that guy that we all remember smoking fools, smashing Rich Franklin's nose in to a point where his face looked like a pavement afterwards? That's ingrained in our mind. So when Jake gets in there, he's seen all the knockouts that I've seen, that you've seen. You got the guy looking at you with his fucking eyes wide open on you, and you're like, there's got to be a moment in Jake's head where he goes, holy fuck, it's Anderson Silva and I've got to fight. It's very hard to remove that mental component of I'm in there with a living legend right now. Yeah. And that just takes guts and it takes balls.
I think Jake is just fucking crazy. I honestly do. I don't think there's anything that goes on in this guy's head that he has any fear of any individual, maybe, if it was someone pick a massive heavy, somebody like that, but he's talking about fighting Canelo. I know that as a normal person, as a realist, I wouldn't say those things because I know that's fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. But I think Jake is just fucking nuts. And I think this is another testament to that. He doesn't look, yes, he looks at Anderson as one of his heroes, but he looks at a way to get to that next level. And if that means, like he said, exterminating the spider, okay, like here we go again.
Yeah. You have to almost borderline on being delusional to reach the pinnacle of your potential in anything.
Always.
Yeah.
I've always said this about Jake. He is delusional to the highest degree that makes him that, like you said, those 3 years that he took, and now all of a sudden he's knocking out Tyron Woodley. He got there because he was delusionally confident in his skill and his ability.
Obviously, we'll break the fight down closer to the time, but right now we both accept it's his biggest challenge by a mile. And you've interviewed KSI a lot, and KSI is building to a fight against Jake Paul. What the fuck does that do? This fight, it all of a sudden, just when we feel like, all right, KSI's back, he's catching Jake up, Jake then goes and does something like this, and I mean, like, what do you think JJ's thinking looking at this fight being announced after he's just had all of that flack for something where, I mean, JJ didn't get flack personally, but the event got criticised for the level of opponents he was fighting, where he's fighting guys who look like they literally haven't put a pair of gloves on before, by the looks of it. And then Jake Paul's getting in there with Anderson fucking Silva. What's going through JJ's mind, in your opinion?
It's tough for JJ because he I know is actively trying, like you said, to get to Jake. And, you know, I had a discussion with my boy Sensei on our podcast about this. Like, we were talking about the draws, like, who's the biggest draw? And he made such a good point to me. He was like, the biggest draw that KSI is going to have is Jake, you know, and Jake is now looking to go to Conor McGregor and Anderson Silva, and he's just boom, 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 up in the level. That's
because of what Jake's achieved rather than his actual, like celebrity power. Jake has sort of gone beyond and is now being taken more seriously as an actual fighter.
As a boxer, right? Yeah. So For JJ, you got to look at this and say, you know, I think he's looking at it and saying what we're saying, like, damn, respect, you know, okay, he's going out and doing that. If you're JJ, there's a time frame here that you have to do this, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah. All of a sudden, do you think that window's got a little tighter?
Yeah, the longer it goes and the longer we'll see, though, like, Jake still has to win fights. So he goes out there and gets smoked by Anderson, and the whole thing opens up again, you know? But the longer this goes and the longer Jake continues to up the levels and win, that fight becomes, you know, further and further apart, because then JJ has to almost replicate what Jake's doing in a different way, you know?
Well,
like, he has to get there.
I think, sorry to interrupt you, I think he can, it's a bit like the Joshua Fury scenario in that people will always want to see it.
Yeah.
But we're now going into that fight just thinking, well, Fury probably, you know what I mean? Like, and we might be in a similar scenario where if, let's say, JJ fights Slim and Jake Paul fights Anderson, and these are all big ifs in terms of what happens in those fights, but let's just say, for example, if Jake Paul sleeps Anderson Silva and JJ goes to a decision and wins the decision against Slim, people immediately are just going to be like, well, this ain't we're not on a level here where we can actually buy into this as a competitive fight. That's the issue.
Yeah, no, I think that regardless of what you look for if you're just wanting to see Jake fight KSI, then that fight, like you said, it'll always be there. Yeah. But if you want to look at it as the biggest fight we can make in YouTube boxing, we have to see competition. And for us to see that, JJ is going to have to make up ground quickly. Now, I know, and we know through Misfits, they're going to have a ton of events in the next year. Yeah. But that level has to start with Slim or with whoever they're going to fight next, and it has to be congruently like escalating fight after fight. And for Jake to be as active as he is, it's just hard to see unless Jake has a stumbling block, which, I mean, obviously Anderson is that stumbling block.
I mean, Anderson could well fucking be that guy to go back to YouTube boxing for you, pal.
Yeah, like that. We're acting like it's a foregone thing. Like, oh, Jake's just going to keep going. No, like, he's taken super tough fights, and Anderson could derail this whole thing.
Absolutely.
So KSI, Jake, I like you said, I think we have to see it as competitive, and the more that KSI gets in there and shows more ring time, I think we can get a better idea as to what that competitive level will be. But as of right now, it looks like we're still a ways off.
Yeah, I just think by Jake even taking this fight, it makes it look that way. But then, like you say, if Silva plays with him and it's not competitive in any way, then all of a sudden JJ is making videos laughing and oh, you got schooled. Yeah, back to YouTube boxing for you, pal. Come back to me. We'll have an actual fight, because that wasn't. You know what I mean? I can see how it could go either way, and you can see that depending on how Jake does, the road is either going to be like Fast and the Furious, you know, like, or we're coming together here. It's sort of fascinating how this is such a domino effect of a moment here in this the new boxing scene that we're seeing.
It's a level of one-upsmanship from both guys, right? Like, and the way I look at it is KSI at his events, he's trying to one-up Jake's events. Like, KSI's entire event was immaculate, ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you watch a Jake Paul event, and you're really watching for Jake, right? You're watching for that main event, like a most boxing events would be.
Mate, let's not forget some of those. I mean, that Ben Askren event where they had all those dancers and singers. It
was awful.
Fucking hell, it was bad.
It was terrible.
Nothing, and that's where, like, you know, Misfits have nailed it. And I'm not just saying this because we were a part of the show. Like, I couldn't give a shit, really.
Like, if you have two eyes and you can see, though, that's the easiest thing to see.
It was hands down the best YouTube boxing event that we've ever seen in terms of the all-round package. So that's always going to be there.
JJ having that level of upsmanship, if he can then level up the competition, which I think he's going to do with Slim, with, you know, if it's Tommy Fury, if he's able to match the levels in competition and go boom, 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 while keeping that event as good as it is, it makes his drawing power and the Jake fight even more realistic, because then Jake sees, fuck, these guys are putting on ridiculous events, and he's starting to get to that level. Then we can make that fight. But one little pebble in this road, and that's the hard part about this fight. We talked about it in studio. Jake trips up, you know, against Anderson, and that's not a pebble, it's a fucking boulder. Or if KSI has a struggle with one of the other guys he fights, and this fight, again, it just separates again. So we have to have everything almost go perfect here.
We'll put a pin in it for now.
We got to for now.
I want to talk to you about a couple of more fights before we go.
Let's do it.
Fights coming up. McBroom, Gib. You've met Gib recently. You had a sit down with him. Obviously, his energy is always crazy, but how are you feeling about the fight coming up?
I love Gib, man. I love him to death. We sat down, and one of the biggest things in the interview, you can hear him breathing the whole time. The microphone caught him breathing, and he has this focus about him, and that's I guess where my biggest takeaway was. He has this focus and confidence in himself that he's going to go in and take Austin out. This fight is massive for him, and it's massive for, you know, the YouTube boxing scene moving forward, because let's say Gib goes in and wins, all of a sudden he's back at the top of the list here. You know, like I don't know.
He's top five immediately then.
Yeah. And another thing that, you know, we're talking about Gib, you know, going in, shutting down the promotion, doing all this. Austin's not bad. And I know this because I've seen too much of him and how quickly he's gotten better. I don't know that people are giving Austin the credit of how good he could possibly be in this sport with more time. And this is what worries me, is that people are, and I listen, I don't even care to tell you, I'm going to go, like, Gib's got my heart, man. I can't go against Gib.
You've fallen in love, bro.
I know, man. That big nose, what do you want me to do? But no, but
man, like, you know, when you talk about a growth story as well,
that's part
just to
of
give you a little bit of a backstory, my first ever commentary gig in YouTube ever was on this thing called the Wembley Cup that Spencer put together.
Yeah.
That you might remember as years ago, like, everyone was different, really different. But Gib more so than the other boys even. I remember sitting next to him, and he was chubby. He looked like he'd never worked out in his fucking life. He was saying to me, like, mate, I couldn't even get on the school team, and now here I am playing at Wembley, yada, yada, yada.
Crazy.
And he was funny, but he wasn't, like, confident and aggressive. And the person he's become now, when you see him shredded in his latest pictures and all the work he's done with Leon over the years, it's a great thing to see someone improve themselves. And the biggest thing I can give credit on is he did not let that Jake Paul defeat slow him down. He kept going, and we've seen, like, it ain't easy to do that. Some people struggle with it, you know what I mean? And he's a fucking man, Gib. I've got, mate, I've seen him train. I told you some stories.
Yeah.
The guy is got my fucking respect. And look, McBroom, all I can say, we haven't seen a lot of him. That Bryce Hall fight was trash, in my opinion. Bryce Hall, not good, and he probably took longer than he should have done to get him out of there. But you're going to have to crack this guy and nail him to the floor in order to beat Gib, in my opinion, because he's going to keep coming. So I'm really excited to see the winner of this, because I think they could potentially leapfrog Slim especially if it's McBroom. I think that's the only thing where Slim looked so good, but McBroom, KSI, it's a huge event. That
they've already got beef there. The problem I see for Gibb is we're in 10s, right? We're in 10 ouncers, and it doesn't take a big time shot to put someone down with 10s. He could slap out a hook, and that's going to hurt, right? And the thing I keep seeing in Austin's camp, and this could be a good or bad thing for Austin, is he continually looks like he wants to play counter fighter, back foot, snipe Gibb on the way in. He's been talking about Gibbs bringing this pressure, bring that pressure, bring it. I'm gonna, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna take advantage of it.
He's gonna try and use the Jake Paul blueprint and he move backwards and crack him on the way.
He wants to snipe. He wants to snipe. And that's, like I said, it's a dangerous game because all of a sudden you might be, and I know it's Austin's promotion, so if you're down 3 rounds, really you're probably tied 3 rounds. But if you're down, it's like, oh, we just won 3, we're good. Yeah. But if you're taking that approach and you can't snipe Gibb, and all of a sudden the volume starts adding up, now you may be down 3-4 rounds, and you have to turn it around in those last 2. But it's really going to come down to, can Austin catch Gibb coming in like he plans on doing, and can Gibb enter range safely? Can he have that patient pressure
I
and
think
show a
Gibb
bit
can,
ahead?
I think it's going to be, don't get me wrong, look, I think he'll get cracked a few times, but I think he'll stay with it. And I think we may end up, I would not be surprised if we end up with a controversial decision, because the thing about Gibb that I think people don't appreciate now, because they've only seen that big win he had recently against Taylor, but it's educated pressure now. It ain't. I think, if anything,
and it's gonna have
some of the
be.
criticism that I had of JJ in his fight, of how he was entering, how his shot selection wasn't quite right. Like, if you look at Gibb in the Taylor Holder fight, that's how you fucking beat someone up. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. With that style, educated pressure, jabbing on the way in, he judged the distance well. And I think his boxing IQ is more improved than what people think.
The only thing I worry about with Gibb is he shut Taylor down immediately. And Taylor was never the same in that fight after that first round. He just couldn't get shots off. Can he do the same to Austin? Is Austin going to wilt away, or is Austin going to be able to land something early, or just be there late?
Austin's an arrogant bastard, though, which I know, for fighting is great. It means he's not going to give up as the way Taylor did. Yeah,
and that's the problem too. Is like you have Gibb, 2 or 3 rounds he banks in, but Austin catches him in 4 or 5, and all of a sudden it's a different round. They're going 6, so it's 6 threes.
I like it.
The only thing, and this is another thing I worry about with Gibb, what is his ceiling, right? Like as a boxer, as a talented boxer, what is his talent ceiling? Because we both know, he even told me, he's like, I didn't do a push-up till I was 21. Like, athleticism is not something we know Gibb for. We know him for hard work, dedication, pressure, and now he's starting to become that athlete that we wanted to see.
His engine is really something. I will give him that. I think that's where he will surprise Austin a little bit with the level that he can keep up for that length of time. It's mad.
Yeah. I just wonder, and again, experience, like, this is why I'm going with Gibb. He has experience. He has that engine. He has become a better boxer over that last, like, the amount of time he's put into it has made him a pretty decent boxer for this level. Austin is just a different, and I know we talked about him being a basketball guy, but he is a different level of athlete. And he's picking his sport up quick. I would say just as quick as Jake and Logan did.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen the same footage that you have, bro, so that's really shocking.
His footwork, I'm watching some things he's doing, and he's a natural right-handed guy, but he's actually starting to look like a southpaw. And I don't know that he's going to look as clean and crisp that he does in some of his footage when Gibb is in front of him, and that's what we're looking for, the ultimate test.
It's very hard when you've got the Tasmanian devil on you. Yeah,
right. And that's why Jake was so impressive. Like, in retrospect, right? Yeah. At the time, we were like, "Oh, Jake's going to run this kid over," but in retrospect, Gibb does that to everyone except Jake, So it's like, how does Austin look with that freight train in front of him? It's just, I know that Austin, being a decent level athlete to begin with and starting to pick the sport up pretty quickly, I think he has the ability to snipe Gibb. I just don't think, if he doesn't do it, he doesn't win this fight. I think Gibb can easily win. Again, hopefully wins a decision in that promotion, but that's what I see happening. Gibb going to decision.
One last thing I will say is Gibb's got the fucking chin as well, to be fair to him. Like, Jake smashed him and he kept getting up.
Yeah.
Where other people
Jake cracked him with 10s and he popped right back up.
It's going to take the shot of a lifetime from McBroom. And if to be fair, look, if McBroom does it, then there's your sale. Because
I was gonna say,
you just beat the guy
Austin
who sparred KSI for months on end, and that's a hell of a moment. But we're with Gib. Obviously, we love Gib, and we believe in Gib. Last fight I want to talk about is an interesting one that looks like it could be happening in January on the next KSI card. Logan Paul, Dylan Dennis. We are finally going to see Dylan Dennis.
Bro, don't even say it. I don't think we're gonna see it. Really? I don't know, because how many times have we done this? How many times have we said, all right, it's time. Dylan Dennis, X person, right? Yeah. Logan versus I just don't know yet, right? And I would love to see it. Like, Dylan, if you're ready, let's do it. Logan, obviously, take some time off from WWE. Let's get it. But I would love to see this fight. I'm
not a hater. Like, Dylan was bitching about me after I laughed at that, because Logan said he's like the gum on the bottom of your shoe that you did. I was like, it's so true though, because he is that person now in fighting where he's just there. Like, he never does anything. He's just chirping away. He has achieved nothing in terms of actual striking. Even if he gets in there with Logan, I'd have respect for him, genuinely, because I think Logan beats the living fuck out of him.
Yeah, look, Logan's definitely at an advantage here, but that's what I think. People just want to see him back up the things he said continuously about the Pauls and about really anyone. Like you said, he's just around.
John Jones, you name it.
Yeah.
You name it.
He's just around, and all of a sudden, he has this opportunity, and it seems like you can't use the "I wasn't healthy." I'm not saying it was an excuse, but you can't say that now. Like, you are now healthy, you are training. It is time now to go and do this. Hopefully, Scott Coker is like, yeah, okay, like, go do this, whatever. Yeah. And I think that's the fight, man. Like, please just, I don't know, make it happen, because I can't do another one of these things where Dylan's like, 2 months later, I don't know what happened. It didn't work out, and then we don't get that card.
This is the point, though, where if you're a friend of Dylan, you got to go, bro, what the fuck are you waiting for? Like, you're not getting a check anywhere else.
Yeah. And can we talk about, like, yes, this card is potentially going to be stacked.
Oh, yeah.
Like, from what I'm hearing behind the scenes, and I can't say too much, but I'm hearing this is one they want to just blow out of the fucking water. KSI opponent, Logan, hopefully Dylan, other names that are massive YouTubers that I don't think people even know about trying to be on this card.
Oh, really?
They're talking about this thing being like,
that's the good thing is now, because you know what fucking clout chasers, fucking influencers are. They see the spotlight, they're like,
oh, it was,
I want it.
Everybody came in.
And hey, it was such an amazing night. That's the thing.
Why not?
The hardest thing about YouTube boxing was getting people to sign up. Now you got a queue. It's perfect.
I was gonna say, now you have so many people.
I've got one question for that event. Sol Papi, who would you put him with
right now? Salt Papi, who could I put him with that makes sense? Okay, Slim is a big if, right? If Slim gets the KSI fight, you can't put him with him, but if he doesn't, that's a pretty decent, it's an interesting matchup.
Slim
because
Kenny,
Salt Papi's
maybe?
a lot shorter. Slim Kenny is a good one as well, and I think that one might even just work out more naturally, just because they've all been in talks and stuff.
Size wise as well.
Yeah, size wise, the reach is there for Kenny. Oh man, who does? I saw a name a couple. You know, it was funny. I saw someone on Twitter was like, "Why not go Salt Papi and KSI?" And Keem is the Happy Punch owner, and he was like, "I'm keeping Salt Papi as far away from KSI as possible." Because I think people know, like, Salt Papi's dangerous. You know?
Oh yeah.
So so you might want to keep him just keep him over here for a couple of years, and then maybe. But you got to build him up so that fight, when it happens,
it's such a strange one, because look, at the end of the day, what Sol Papi did was spectacular, but who he did it against wasn't.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's repeatable, but that's why I'm saying, like, if it's JJ versus a McBroom, and then we have Sol Papi.
What about Salt Papi Gibb?
Mate.
If that fight happens, if Gibb,
we're not saying Gibb's going
to lose.
I don't know about you, but my fire for MMA is dwindling a little bit lately, because I've had so many fights. The UFC, in my opinion, just isn't being ran very well since the WME purchase. Like, the
week of fight promotion stuff is very weird to me.
Yeah.
They're like, wait till Monday, and then here we go with this big event. No one says shit about it beforehand, though. I don't understand.
Yeah, and also, like, you know, fights that I've been waiting for so long and not materializing, and I'm just frustrated by basically MMA is becoming everything that Dana used to criticize about boxing, and this is where we make the fights people want, and it's just not happening anymore. But weirdly, my excitement for that January card, it's going to be basically, it's probably going to be above AJ versus Fury purely because I'm just going to be like, what's going to happen? And that's what, as fight fans, that feeling of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The fact that we have so many of those on a full night of fights in Misfit is, I got to give the guys credit. That's where the excitement's coming from. Obviously, it's not necessarily the skill, but I'm pumped for that January card, man.
It could be, you know, outside of Jake and, you know, KSI and the Logan KSI fights, this could be the biggest one we have for a long time, depending on if the names I'm hearing that are wanting to be on this thing get on it.
If it's Logan and KSI on the same card, it's a wrap. Whatever happens outside of it, that is that. Whatever they got in, I mean, there's been a dispute of, was it 500? Was it 250? Was it 300? Whatever it was, they're going to the moon with that one.
To do 500, if they did that with that, like, not only the card was amazing, but to do it with those two people as the main event with KSI, you give KSI a credible name. Oh my, like Tommy Fury, and Logan on the card, you're doing a mill. Like, you're doing at least a mill.
All right, brother. It's been a pleasure as always. I know the people love when we chop it up here on the Pain Game podcast. Everyone go and subscribe to Wade. He's a fucking legend. He's a diamond, and he's killing the game over in America. I've been trying to get him to move to the UK so we could do more content, but we'll see what happens.
Over there. We'll get over there, man. We'll do it.
Yes, brother. All right, that's all from me and Wade. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the True Geordie YouTube channel, and we'll see you later. Get 25% off at trueclassic.com with my code TRUE and get free shipping on orders over £100. That's 25% at trueclassic.com with the code TRUE.